Sorry, my mom sprung a pop quiz on me about thermodynamics. Luckily, she knows dick about physics. It was over quick.
It's not a problem.
You like to shop, huh?
Oh, could say that.
Oh, hey. What do you think?
No.
Yeah, it's kind of basic.
Why are we hanging out, Kelly?
What do you mean?
You find me intriguing. Why?
You're an old friend of my mom's who recently chased her through the woods with a knife, and you're somehow still pals. It's pretty intriguing.
We both know it's more than that. I guess what I'm really asking you is to tell me who you are. Okay, if you could describe yourself without embarrassment or shame, and especially without the fear that you might say something that scares you, what would you say?
Is this like some game that you'd play at your cult?
No, it's not a game. See, I think that you, unlike most, have the capacity to answer that question. That is, if you choose to. Oh, this is what I see for you.
Wow, but I mean, no, this has to be like $1 million.
It's fine, I'll help.
Buddy.
Don't you want to try it on?
Sure. Where's the dressing room?
No, not here. You can try it on at home. There are no sensors on the exit. There are 2 security guards, one over there and another by the shoes. She's undercover, but it's obvious. Okay, follow me.
Hey guys and girls, Bored Now back with you. On this video I'm going to be talking about Yellowjackets Season 3 Episode 3. Them's the Breaks is the title. So full spoilers from the start of this review, just to warn you. And to sum up my feelings on this episode, I think it's a very good episode overall. It's probably the best of the 3 so far. And what stands out about it is then one of the things that this show does best is the horror stuff, and it really raises the bar for those type moments and makes them very suspenseful, and there's some good horror direction, and that's definitely true of this episode, the back half of the episode in particular. So a scene with Van and Ty, adult Van and Ty, and also the stuff at the very end of the episode in the wilderness. There's some great horror direction in that, and it also tips into a little bit of the surreal once again with some of the dreams and the hallucinations, and it has a very Twin Peaksy or Lynchian type vibe with some of the stuff at the end, and all that stuff I thought was really well done, and it does set up some intriguing theories for the season moving forward. The teen stuff I definitely enjoyed more in this episode. It did feel like there was some filler in the adult stuff. Same rumour that came from the internet this week about Laura Lee. This theory that she might still be alive somehow, and that's who Hilary Swank is going to play when she appears later in the season, the adult version of Laura Lee. And it's funny because watching this episode, Laura Lee doesn't even get mentioned. I'm not sure really where that sort of comes from based on this. She's still alive. Maybe they're saying some sort of reincarnation, because those sort of things have been hinted at in Yellowjackets. And also with Laura Lee being religious, and there is a religious aspect to the show. So are they suggesting that maybe? Is it that somehow she did manage to survive the crash? It's very unlikely because the plane blew up. If the plane had just crashed, then maybe, but it did actually blow up in midair. I want to see more of Laura Lee in some form. Like, I would like to see her appearing more to Lottie or appearing more to other characters, and flashbacks maybe also, because I think she's a really underrated character, and she was one of my favourite characters from season 1. But I don't know how I would feel about if they did some sort of reincarnation type storyline with Laura Lee and have her appear. I don't know if I would be on board for that or not. It just seems like maybe even for this show that's stretching it a bit. I don't know, it may be characteristic, then if she is somehow still alive, then they might leave that ambiguous. But let me know what you think in the comments about that. How would you feel about this idea that Laura... I mean, maybe it's just this crazy sort of internet rumour, but let me know what you would think of it anyway in the comments. On with the episode itself. So, the adult timeline. The highlight of the adult timeline this week was definitely the Van and Ty stuff. I'm really enjoying that we're getting more of them as a couple. Van gets some positive news, and that is that the cancer has stopped growing and she seems to be starting remission at least. So later on she gives Ty this news. Ty is delighted, but Ty also has some news, and that is about the waiter who died. Signs of dark Ty appearing as she's like giving this news, and the way she's acting is all very hypnotic and quite intense. But Ty believes the wilderness is again having an influence. He seems to have this idea, then it goes back to what the wilderness was doing, where it was almost like you sacrifice someone and then someone is saved. So she's saying things like Nat's death was seen as a bit of a sacrifice, which it was, or they seem to believe it was later. But then you've got the news about Van recovering, it seems. Whereas Van, I think, is very much of the mindset, well, it's just is what it is. It's a coincidence. We hear the wilderness and it hears us. Lauren Ambrose does a great job in this scene, by the way, of selling just how freaked out Van is, and her reactions, her terrified reactions. And I think that look where she has, where it's somewhere between like, what the fuck is going on here, but also being quite unsettled and terrified. Another comment I think about the Van stuff, assuming the cancer is in remission and she does heal up and gets healthy again, I like this idea of it happening naturally rather than, because sometimes in a show like this it's tempting just to make it be another mysterious aspect. I know some people had the theory that he would use her powers to heal Van up, then she might have that sort of healing type power. Theorised then it's something else, like obviously Ty is, but I quite like this idea, then it just heals up naturally. And Van are watching classic children's programmes, seems to be Pee Wee Herman, and this is stuff which Van has stored on VHSs all these years, so that's classic Van. That's good stuff. And this is a really lovely Van and Ty moment. They're sort of pigging out on the couch watching this stuff. And then you get this bizarre sort of crossover, and they do a good job of transitioning this into something a little bit darker. So it's blurred with something a lot more like innocent and playful. Because the man with no eyes appears, or something which looks like the man with no eyes appears in this old ice cream commercial. Grandmother took her there when she was young to the ice cream parlour. And of course, we remember from season 1 that the whole visions thing started with Ty's grandmother, and it appears as though that's how Ty got the visions. Now the story's closed because it's late at night, but Ty insists they must go. And later on, Ty breaks in, and once again you've got Van the classic Van sort of like, okay, what the fuck, you are, this makes you a criminal. Horror direction with them creeping around this parlour at night. They do make it very unsettling. And out of nowhere, a fox appears with like an animal in its mouth. And Ty asks, what do you want? And Van says, it wants more. Literal, is it just, yeah, it's a fox, so it wants more food? Or is it, as I said, it represents the wilderness and it wants them to feed it, wants to give it more? Playing on the idea of the wilderness wants people sacrifice to it. So again, is it almost like the fox represents something else? And is it someone reincarnated into a fox? Let me know what you think of that in the comments, but I definitely think the Van and Ty stuff was the highlight of the adult timeline. Meanwhile, Shauna is contacted by Misty, who claims she has important intel. It seems like it's just an excuse for them to hang out because Misty's feeling pretty lonely and shitty. We also see Misty is at work doing the rounds, and that's quite an entertaining scene. I do like the continuity that we still see them at their day job. At a cafe later, Shona, of course, is still mad with Misty for the previous night. Misty claims she had the whole truth or dare situation in control, and she was manipulating the whole thing. Not sure if I believe that or not. And she ends up tagging along in classic Misty fashion to Shauna and her errands for the day. And later on, they start fighting in the car, and it crashes mysteriously. Like Shauna can't seem to keep it under control. So again, is there something magical, mysterious going on with that? And Shauna absolutely loses it. She accuses Misty of messing up the car on purpose. She accuses her of leaving the phone in the store the previous night, so that Misty was behind that. Misty looks puzzled, and I've got to ask the question, how the hell could it be Misty when she was at Shona's place that night? And I definitely don't think it's going to be as simple as it just being Misty. This may be a sign that Shona is not thinking straight. She goes on a whole tirade, calls Misty a psychopath, and reruns the history. Why do you do any of your things you do? Misty kicks her out the car. This is more of a comedic scene, and it's a little bit more of a filler scene. She burns up the picture of her and the other Yellowjackets. So this feels very much like, for her at least, then this could be the end of their friendship based on what just happened with Shona. And I think that's going to naturally lead on to her reconnecting with Walter next week, because Walter wasn't in this episode, so I think he will probably pop up again next week, and their relationship will start once again. Callie and Lottie start hanging out more. Both Callie and Lottie find excuses to leave without having breakfast. Lottie seems to turn her nose up at Shauna's suggestion of pancakes for breakfast, which was pretty funny. So Callie tails Lottie to a clothes store. Once again, this is something we've seen with her in the past, but she steals this outfit for Callie, and she's starting to do things with Callie, which is like linked to stuff from the wilderness. So she later feeds her some mysterious herbs or something, which was similar to what the Yellowjackets took in the past. Callie is also wearing Jackie's necklace, and this pushes Shona over the edge. She rips off the necklace at one point. She snaps and kicks Lottie out. Great explosive rage from Linsky in this scene. I thought she was very good, very unhinged. Probably one letdown is they could have done a bit more with Lottie and Callie in this episode, because their scenes were quite short, and this is one of the most intriguing things about the adult timeline. But I'm expecting more on this next week, and whether Lottie's going to be a good influence, whether it's going to be therapeutic for Callie to find out more about her mother's past, or if it's going to turn Callie down like a darker path. It remains to be seen. To the Wilderness, and I pretty much love everything from the Wilderness this week. We open with a great subversion, actually, because when the Showtime logo came up, it started playing I'm Too Sexy by Right Said Fred. I groaned a little because I was like, okay, this doesn't really fit Yellowjackets, and it doesn't really feel like the sort of song they should be using. But then it fades out and it goes to the cave with Mari, and she's humming it, but she's doing her own version of it. She's like, I'm too sexy for this cave, which is like really funny. So that was really clever because it subverted what I thought was going to happen. Some really good stuff with her and Ben in this episode. Like, they really open up to each other, just trying to appeal to like his human side. And they have this big heart-to-heart type scene where he breaks down and he starts saying things like, how messed up is this situation that I've got you captured here, and I don't know how it even happened. I was just this regular guy from New York. And he gives her this whole like backstory. Mari gives this speech about how maybe in some ways we all live two lives. And that's a bit on point with some of the themes of the show. But she starts giving this really dark story about how she lost her cousin. Her cousin died of cancer when she was 6. And she tells this story about how she was just watching like a kid's cartoon show at the time, and how that same thing was playing in the hospital when they took the cousin in, and the cousin died there. And again, it's on theme with what Coach Ben was talking about how he lived a very ordinary type life. So it's this thing of mixing the light and the dark, the cheery and playful, but then suddenly real life hits you in the face. It's almost a bit of what they were doing with the Ty and Van stuff. Tries to play the card of, I've got a crush on you, and it's sort of funny because at this point she doesn't know he's gay, so that pays that off really well. This thing about how everyone had a crush on you, like all the girls, but I've got the biggest crush. And the way he rebuffs her is very brutal but very darkly funny as well. But yeah, I do really like those scenes with those two, and it opens up Mari's character a little bit also. And then macing each other in the face at one point is, again, a little bit more of hijinks, a little bit more hitting the comedy button. Probably a weaker moment, that, but quite good fun anyway. He decides to let her go. It's this tense scene where he's got a knife to her, and in the end he uses the knife to cut her free. Because she's already promised that if he lets her go, she won't tell on him. Kicks over his crutch in quite a vicious way, and I think she's just taking no chances so that she can escape. She makes it to the camp. At first, it looks like she's going to keep her promise to Coach, because she comes up with this whole story about how she just fell down a hole, she broke her leg or injured her leg, and how she did it herself. And they catch her in a lie, and that's when she's pretty quick actually to change tack, and she tells them that no, he had me down there, he had me captured. And Shauna's right there. She's the first one to say, right, we've got to go and get him. Can you show us the way, Mari? She says, I think so. Here's so Akira might be the one who can speak to the wilderness. And Travis and Lottie both seem to have this idea. So Lottie says, you've got to come, Akira, because you seem to be able to connect with the wilderness. And this is a good way to open up Akira's character, assuming it is her. And I know there was that brief subplot in season 2 where she befriended like the animal, the road was talking to that rat, turned into something completely different, where for a lot of it seemed like quite a typical Yellowjackets episode, but then it becomes something else once again. And again, I think this is the show at its best, where it's very suspenseful, it's very sinister and dark, and there's some great horror direction, but it also becomes something like, yeah, that was very different, that was very surreal, and what does it all mean? And it leaves you on a note where you can theorize. So they go down into these caves, they've got lanterns, it's all very like spooky. There's two paths, two different directions, so they decide to go into different groups. So Shauna has a group, Natalie has a group. Natalie says, just shout, if anything happens, we'll come running. And we follow Shauna's group. It seems like water starts coming out at them, so Van is saying how they probably got the wrong path. The lanterns start flickering. Shauna and Akira disappear, and then Van's lantern goes out. And this is where it splits all three of them up into different things. So Van is the first one we see. She goes through this door and she ends up in the cabin. It's in the chair. Fire starts coming from the place and it seems to surround her. And at one point she's trying to escape, but hands come out of the chair. So that's a really cool horror moment as well. And we see fire in Van's eyes, and she's trying to escape the cabin. So the big theory which has come out of this is that maybe Van is the one who started the fire. She burnt down the cabin. Now, how this would all work out and how they would explain it, how she did it, why she did it, I don't really know, but it's an interesting theory, and it does seem to be the purpose of this scene, because she is in the cabin and you've got the fire right there, and it's still a mystery of who did it. And I kind of suspected it would be too obvious if it was Coach Ben. Another possibility is that maybe it's just the wilderness, maybe it was a natural thing, how they go into these different sections and it suddenly becomes this pretty like surreal Lynchian type section of the episode. So Shona drops down into some water and appears to be drowning. So a bit like Van is getting submerged by the fire, Shauna is getting drowned in this water. So you've got all these different elements that are like opposing them. Could it be a reference? What happened to Laura Lee? Her plane went down, she ended up in the water, her body would have done. Also, you've got the whole religious stuff with the baptizing. Could that be, is this a reference to that? Like Shauna potentially drowning in the water. Akira ends up in like a field type thing, and there's some goats there, I think there are, and then we get a talking goat. So once again, the surreal stuff, and the talking goat says, "Be careful, they'll bite you." She says, "They don't bite." Says, "Anything can bite you." I don't know if that's meant to be some sort of a warning. But the goat is talking about how the wilderness, well, it's talking to you, it says, and then we start to hear those noises. And she starts sinking beneath the earth. Three of them all end up in a classroom. The Yellowjackets uniforms. Now, I thought the teacher of the class looked like it was Lottie, which would make some sense, but I don't think it is Lottie. Like, when I looked at her again, it didn't really look like Lottie, so I don't know if it's just meant to be their teacher. Cameo from Ella Farrell, like she's back in it as Jackie, and there's lots of weird stuff, and it's fitting that we got the necklace earlier on. One of the girls, I think it's Shona, gets a thing around her neck, strangling Shona, and I think Melissa is in the dream and she gets strangled as well, or blood comes from her, and there seems to be some sort of message from Jackie about you've got to work together, or like it'll get you, or she'll die, you have to. And there seems to be some stuff going on about the past with Jackie and Shona, but now how maybe Melissa needs Shona, and maybe a general thing about how the wilderness needs them to work together. It's a scene I need to rewatch to really get some strong thoughts on it. But I think Melissa is in the scene, like she's someone else who is put in jeopardy, and it's a good cameo for Jackie. They come out of the dream and they're back in the tunnel, Shona and Akira, but there's no sign of Van, so they're like, where's Van? And then suddenly out of nowhere, Coach Ben is dragging Van along. Van seems to be unconscious, to be like trying to save her. Natalie and the others appear, and Natalie points a gun at him and says, sorry, you're coming with us. And that's the credits. So yeah, I loved all that stuff at the end. There was some great thematic things, some good symbolism, some weird stuff, but it was very well done. It didn't feel like it was random weird. It seemed like there was a point to it, and it was very creepy, well done stuff. So there was some great horror direction in the episode that I appreciated. So yeah, really good episode and lots to think about. Let me know what you think about Yellowjackets. Them's the break. Let me know what you think about some of the ideas, about some of the things that could happen or could come out of it. Do you think it turns out Van did burn down the cabin? What you think about the episode in general in the comments below. Like and subscribe once again. And if you're looking for other similar type shows maybe, or like a current type show, I will be covering The White Lotus season 3. Now I haven't got to episode 1 yet because I was a bit ill earlier in the week, so didn't quite feel up to doing the review, but I will do the review and I plan on covering White Lotus season 3. So if you're interested in this show, you may well have an interest of that show. Thanks for listening, guys. Keep watching TV. See you again soon. Bye.
We have to make him pay for trying to kill us.
That's right. Life and death has always been for it to decide.
He's not one of us.
I'm sticking my neck out for you. Do not make me look stupid.
I need more time with you.
But not like this.
Someone's trying to hurt you for what you did.
I can take it.
You never could.